We've got updates for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on the Nintendo Switch 2, including the tech analysis and how good of a quality port that this game is, in addition to the scores that are coming in for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade as well, and a potential 2026 release for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second game in the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. So a lot to go over, but before we get into that, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 when we hit 150,000 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below to have a chance to win. Also hit that like button and notification bell as well. We're also giving away a $50 eShop card at the end of this month. Random winner as well. So thank you guys for your support so far, and let's go ahead and jump right into the content here, because we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade and what is happening with the reviews of the game first. So the game has an 88 on the Metacritic score rating. That's right around what the game got on the PlayStation 5, which it got an 89. So far, so good. 88 overall. That's a really good score for this game. One of the higher rated Nintendo Switch 2 third-party ports that have came over from Xbox, PlayStation, or PlayStation and PC. So definitely a great score. A lot of the reviews praise it as a technically solid port of the game. Very compelling overall to have this type of title anywhere that you want. And it remains one of the better games of the generation that we got on the PlayStation 4, then transitioning over to the PlayStation 5, and the fact that once again that you can take it natively anywhere that you want on a dedicated platform without having to do some of the tinkering that maybe you have to do with the portable PCs, depending on which portable PC that you have, because it's a bit of a beast of a game on the PC, is definitely much appreciated overall. And of course, all the characters and all the gameplay and all the cool stuff when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is already in there, and it's retained for the most part. The only issue that I saw, at least from what people are saying, is that of course some of the story stuff, and depends on whether you like that or not. So the same faults that were in the PlayStation 5 version or the original PlayStation 4 version are also here, but then also it's 30 FPS. So it's 60 FPS on Xbox Series X and on PlayStation 5 and on PC, of course, if you have a PC that can run it that type of way, but it's 30 FPS here, although it's a very solid, stable 30 FPS, and we're also going to get into some of those technical aspects for the game. But when it comes to the reviews, at least, definitely a solid port, one of the better ports over from Xbox and PlayStation, and from what I'm seeing here with these reviews, looks like it's going to be one of the better reviewed Nintendo Switch 2 games in 2026. But there are a lot of great games that are coming to the platform. So far, so good. 28 scores so far, and 28 of those scores are positive. So that is at least 75 and up. From what I can see from all the different reviews here, there's not a single score that's below an 8 out of 10. The lowest so far is that, so that's also really good. Now there might be some scores that come in lower. Obviously you have the 30 FPS. There are some things that you can talk about there, but for the most part, it does seem like it is a very solid conversion. But for the most part, it seems like it's a more than solid conversion, and it's scoring appropriately overall. So definitely a good thing there. But next, we're going to get into the exact technical specifications of this game. We know about the 30 FPS, that's something there, but how close is the game to the PlayStation 4 version when it comes to the tech, or the PlayStation 5 version? Well, Digital Foundry went over all of that, and while a lot of it is very technical, you can check out their video. They go in depth and in detail into the volumetric lighting and certain little things here and there. Essentially what you need to know is this basic framework here, and shout outs to Nintendo, everything for the roundup. So they talked about the texture work is more of a match for the PlayStation 5 and an upgrade over the PlayStation 4 version, but some of the texture assets are closer or mirror what the PlayStation 4 does. Now, if you're looking at the shadow map quality and character pop-in, that's similar to the PlayStation 4 version of the game, but the lighting, on the other hand, is similar to the PlayStation 5 version, but with a little bit lower resolution on the volumetric lighting, so the density of it. Now, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade resolution on Nintendo Switch 2 is a solid, crisp 1080p when docked. Now, resolution is much sharper and cleaner than the PlayStation 4 version of the game, and compares very favorably when looking at it to the PlayStation 5 version in the performance mode. The PS5 version has two modes, a quality mode and a performance mode, and it looks very similar to the PlayStation 5 version in that way. Now, there does seem to be a very light version of DLSS that's being used, deep learning super sampling, and that's the AI upscaling to help an image when a lower internal resolution image and make that look sharper, to make it look cleaner, like it's a higher quality image. So looks like there's a light version of that going on. The game does have some dither pattern issues, presenting some certain lighting conditions. So once again, that's more of the technical stuff. If you want to watch the Digital Foundry video, you can, and they can explain all of that. And once again, locked, stable 30 FPS for the gameplay, although there are some slight drops in cutscenes for camera cuts. But here's the cool thing: the loading times are significantly better than the PlayStation 4, and the PlayStation 4 notoriously had some pretty long loading times. Now, the portable resolution, for those who love to play in portable mode, is around 720p with some DRS behavior. Now, it does seem like it's upsampled to 1080p with the DLSS, and the dithering patterns are amplified a bit more in portable mode if you kind of zoom in and really pay attention. But the graphics are similar in both docked and portable modes, so when you're playing the game, you're probably not going to notice too many of those little things based off of it. Now, once again, the full tech analysis, and if you want to know every single little thing about FF7 Remake Intergrade on the Nintendo Switch compared to the PlayStation 4, compared to the PlayStation 5, it's all there on Digital Foundry. But I think this once again proves that the Nintendo Switch 2 is a very capable system, and some people were trying to say that it can't be more capable or better than what the PlayStation 4 can do. It's essentially just the PlayStation 4. But I think at this point, looking at this review, and of course looking at other types of games, we've got countless examples now at this point that the Nintendo Switch 2 can punch well above its small weight when it comes to its stature and everything. It's a system that's definitely capable. Not on the level of a PlayStation 5, but of course you can't take a PlayStation 5 anywhere that you want. PS5 is not a hybrid platform. Same thing with the PlayStation 4. It's more capable because of the modern architecture, because of the more RAM, because of other things that Nintendo's done to make the system very intelligently designed. The DLSS has been incredible so far, and developers are still just kind of adapting and getting used to it. I think third-party games a year, 2 years, 3 years from now are going to be significantly better in what they can do. What I'm excited to see is developers actually build specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2 and what they can do overall. I think that they're going to be able to create some incredible experiences and some really memorable times. So far with this tech analysis when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, it's fantastic. And I think that this game is one of those games that's very important to show people that the Switch 2 can actually do some of these bigger games. Now, in FF7 Remake Intergrade, technically it's a PlayStation 4 game that was ported over, but the PS4 version of the game doesn't have the Intergrade content, so a lot of the stuff like with the lighting and certain things, that's just PlayStation 5. But at the same time, it's still a graphically demanding game that pushed the PlayStation 4 to its limits when it comes down to it, and the Nintendo Switch is able to handle many aspects of it in better quality overall and load faster in addition to that. So being able to play this type of game anywhere that you want might be the way for many people out there when it comes to a RPG. Now, I think that one of the more interesting things that people talk about is how is this game going to do? It's coming out on Xbox Series. It's also coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think that in Japan, at least, I think that there's going to be a little bit of a surge. Now, obviously, it's very old, and a lot of people who wanted to play the game have probably got their hands on it on the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 or PC at some point. But for the future of Final Fantasy, this is big. If there's a 15, 16-year-old kid or somebody who maybe didn't get a chance to play it back then, they pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, or even if Nintendo's your main platform here in the West or in different places, and maybe this is your introduction to the Final Fantasy brand, it can turn you into a lifelong fan, or can turn you into a fan of the series, and therefore it gets more people to be interested in Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy has an aging fan base according to some of the studies and surveys that are out there, and they need new people to get into it. So I think that's why this is an important and I would say big step for Square Enix, because before it's essentially just been PlayStation and everything else is pushed to the side for Final Fantasy for many years overall. And now at this point, it seems like it's going to be day and day, or a much higher priority to get Final Fantasy on other platforms as well, including Nintendo, where Nintendo Switch 2 is by far the current market driver when it comes to Japanese sales, and one of the market drivers in all different regions so far based off the sales that we got from last year. What do you guys think about the tech analysis here when it comes to FF7 Remake Intergrade? This game is also cheaper than what you usually see. It's only $40 on the Nintendo Switch 2, so you are getting a bit of a cheaper game in that sense. And remember, you get all the Intergrade content. The Intergrade content was extra DLC. It's all packed in there just for $40. It is a game key card though, but the game wouldn't fit on a regular 64GB cartridge, and the physical edition does give you some like Magic the Gathering trading cards. It's kind of nice in terms of what they pack in there to make it a bit more appealing despite it being a game key card. What do you guys think about that? You guys can let me know. All right, and moving into the final topic here, let's discuss a bit more about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and when that's going to come out on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, Nate the Hay, a famed leaker that actually won Reddit's Leaker of the Year 2025, beating out Jason Schreier and Dust Golem for their accuracy overall. People love Nate the Hay, so shout outs to him. Worked with him many times when it comes to video game content, and he was talking about this on Twitter. He discussed this with some people because they asked him about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and if it's still coming in 2026 to Xbox and the Nintendo Switch 2, and both times his answer was yes. Just one word answer, yes. So FF7 Rebirth still seems to be on track for 2026 on the Nintendo Switch 2, and this is huge when it comes to what Square Enix wants to do with Final Fantasy. We've talked about how Final Fantasy is getting a bit up there when it comes to the fans and the age of people. One way to draw in new people is get in some new platforms, invigorate some life into it overall, and FF7 Rebirth is a game, at least at this point from what we know, there's no sales numbers that have been attached to this game outside of what we saw on the Famitsu, and it didn't stay long in the top 30 for Famitsu overall. So there's definitely a declining population of people that are purchasing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or maybe they played Final Fantasy VII Remake and said, you know what, I do not want to continue this overall. But I do think that when you cut off certain options, especially in Japan, where you have a massive system like the Nintendo Switch 1 and of course the Nintendo Switch 2 that's blowing up in that country, you're not going to be as successful with a JRPG, especially how people like to play games there in Japan, with portable play being a big factor. That's just going to be a problem for you. And I think they ran into that with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, when Remake came out, it wasn't that big of an issue because back then, of course, you didn't have these hybrid systems that can produce the graphics and the visuals and the capabilities that we see now at this point. But Switch 1 kind of proved that, yes, you can do it for a somewhat affordable price, depending on if you can really customize the game. But there's still a lot of games that skip Switch 1. But with the Switch 2, developers are now adapting a lot of their engines and what they do for the lower power architecture type of systems. So being able to get a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Remake and these big JRPGs on a Nintendo Switch 2 platform is a lot easier than trying to adapt it for the Nintendo Switch 1. And I think that Square Enix really understands this, and one of the key factors in bridging the gap from FF7 Remake to FF7 Rebirth, then to FF7 Part 3, which they have super high hopes for. They've spent a lot of money over the course of 3 games, is making sure that people have access to this game with the biggest exploding base of people when it comes to Japan and the Nintendo Switch 2. So I think that it's very important that FF7 Rebirth does come out sometime this year, or at least they talk about it, they announce it, you get some more information, and they show it off, because there's a lot of people who feel that this type of game can't run properly on the Nintendo Switch 2. But I think that we've seen so far that with the Nintendo Switch 2, with the different architecture, with what it does, obviously the build of the system, the RAM and allocation, like you can get these massive games running on there, even if there was some issues here and there on the PlayStation 5, which one of the big games that people felt that couldn't happen because of a variety of different things was Star Wars Outlaws, and Ubisoft was able to get Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows running pretty good on the Nintendo Switch 2, all things considered. So I do think that using the extra development time, using the DLSS, using a number of different techniques and smart pipeline reworking like they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake in order to make things go smoother, despite Final Fantasy VII Rebirth having some issues on the base PlayStation 5 at launch, launch. I think that this extra time, along with the architecture, can really help the Nintendo Switch 2 version better than what some people are expecting with this game, because some people are saying it just flat out can't run, or there's no way it's going to happen, or your Nintendo Switch 2 is going to blow up, or any sort of thing with that. But I don't think so. I don't think Square Enix would commit to having not only Rebirth, but also Remake Part 3 on the Nintendo Switch 2 if they weren't comfortable with the Unreal Engine and with that adapting it to the Nintendo Switch 2. So if it was all laggy or bad or super blurry or you can't tell what's going on, I think they'd just say, no, we can't do it. Because why would they want to put out a version of the game, especially Square Enix, that runs like that? They never do that with Final Fantasy. So I think that, yeah, there might be some visual oddities and some issues sometimes. FF15 was rough, but it was a little bit of a different time period with that type of Final Fantasy game and the hardware that they were working on. But I think in today's day, especially with the quality that FF7 is known for, I just don't think that they'd release something that was lagging all over the place and blurry as heck and just terrible on the Nintendo Switch 2 platform. So I'm expecting it to look and run decent enough overall. I think FF7 Remake Part 3 is going to be very interesting just to see how all of that plays out with everything that we know about FF7 Remake and with FF7 Rebirth even being bigger. And if they nail that one, I think it's going to be a nice bridge once again to get some more people and of course Japan into the mix here with Final Fantasy once again, because those sales numbers necessarily aren't the best when it comes to Rebirth. So what do you guys think overall about everything that we talked about? I know there was a lot of different stuff here. You can let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.